We are learning more about Father John Spaulding. He's the Valley priest now facing charges for sexually assaulting two boys under the age of 15 in the early 2000s.
He was indicted Thursday, but the 12 News I-team is learning there may have been other victims even earlier in the priest's career. Team 12's Bianca Bono is live in the Alert Center. And Bianca, what do we know now?
Well, guys, we know of at least one other alleged victim because of a civil lawsuit filed in 2012. It was filed by David Michael Payne Sr., who claims his son was molested by Father Spaulding when he worked at Maria Goretti in Scottsdale back in the 1980s. It was filed by his father because David Michael Payne Jr. died. The lawsuit claims Spaulding began spending time with Payne Jr. when he was about 13 years old under the guise of helping him through his parents' divorce. But after inviting Payne Jr. to spend time with him in California, the lawsuit claims Spaulding molested him. Payne Sr. believes because of Spaulding's actions, his son's life was changed forever, saying he turned to drugs and a life of crime. Payne Jr. ultimately died after he attacked his father while under the influence of meth. His father, fearing for his own life, shot him. Payne Jr.'s case was not included in the recent indictment against Spaulding, which says the priest sexually assaulted two boys under the age of 15 between 2003 and 2007 when the priest was working at St. Gabriel's and St. Tim's. Robert Pastor, an attorney representing some of Spaulding's accusers, says he believes there are more victims out there.
We know that Father Spaulding ran a program where he called Life Teen that he used to identify children and groom children for sexual abuse.
And Spaulding was suspended by the diocese back in 2011. And if you're wondering what took so long for him to be indicted, a spokesperson from the Maricopa County Attorney's Office tells us they got the case from police just a few months ago. We're live in the Alert Center. Bianca Bono, 12 News.
All right, Bianca, thank you.